Hello, welcome to Stephen Speak. Now, you've heard of men with sheds. Today, I'm going to be talking about my childhood shed that I shared with my brother, where we kept all our toys. So stick around, and hopefully there'll be some funny stories about what we did in our shed. Welcome to Stephen Speak, the podcast. Unscripted prattle on everything and nothing. It occurred to me the other day when I was recording a podcast that sounds like a news flash, my theme. And it only occurred to me the other day, and it's really annoying me now, so I may have to change it. Anyway, men with sheds. I have a shed. Love it. Where I store things that shouldn't go in my garage, basically, so it's becoming more of a storage unit than anything else. But obviously, it's where my gardening stuff is, and wood store, and general stuff, some tools, and different things. But the main stuff's in my garage. But when I was a kid, me and my brother inherited my dad's old shed. Our family home, technically our second family home, but I was very young when we moved there, and we had a very, very long garden. It was a semi-detached house, 3-bed semi, and we had a really long garden, probably it was at least 100, 150 yards long. It was brilliant, great for the dog to run around in, great for kids, Eventually we landscaped it into something a bit prettier, but when we first moved in, it was pretty much all grass from top to bottom, which is a lot of grass to cut. Eventually we staged it and leveled it out and had 3 separate areas of the garden. And the very bottom of the garden was a grassed off area. We had a little summer house on that area. It was a little patio. That's where we used to do the entertaining and a barbecue. And just beyond that, my dad had a couple of fruit trees and stuff, and our shed. We got knocked down eventually because you grow up and it became pretty much unstable and rotten. But when we were younger, it was my dad's old shed. We had a garage, and behind his garage, he had his shed. And one year, he decided to upgrade his shed. He wanted a slightly bigger shed, and the one he had wasn't great. But instead of getting rid of it completely, when he took it down, he was surprised it didn't completely collapse, basically. And my mum, I think it was my mum, suggested that we kept it and put it further down the garden. I probably was thinking of it as an adult, the furthest point away from the house he probably could have put it, actually, so to save hearing us fighting or making silly noises and playing and stuff. But yeah, it went down the bottom of the garden, basically into the what would eventually be the third section of the garden. And yeah, that's where our bikes were kept. Where all our toys were kept as kids. And this was probably from about the age of... we were quite young. My brother was about 5 years older than me, so we were quite young, though. I must have been, maybe 6 years old or something. A lot of my stories happen from around that age. I feel like that's, a pivotal point in my life. I always remember things from when I was about 5 to, 10, really vividly. So maybe that was, a point when I was pretty switched on. Maybe a lot of just nice things happened to me. But yeah, I was kind of in love with that shed a little bit. It was like my little space, and because my brother was a little bit older than me, we rarely kind of played together. So I kind of enjoyed it when he more so when he wasn't there, because when he was there, it was his shed, being the older brother, and he did used to boss me around a little bit. But it was like our little clubhouse as well, kind of thing. I always wanted, I must admit, I still would, if I had the money and the space and the means, I would definitely have a tree house. Always wanted a tree house. So this was kind of our tree house on the ground. And when our mates used to come around, we could lock ourselves in there. I say lock ourselves in. It was a space that was away from our parents where we could go in and close the door, and we were kind of invisible to them. And we couldn't really get into much mischief, really, because it was all our own stuff. So if we were breaking anything or damaging anything, it was our own stuff. But yeah, it was just the best times. And we had, basically, it emptied some of the stuff out of the house and the garage, so my dad was really happy as well, because it saved us storing our push bikes in the garage. I don't think they were any safer in the shed. In fact, they were probably worse off, actually, because they were probably more exposed to people coming into the garden, the furthest point away from the house. And it was a pain in the arse having to walk all the way down. If you wanted to go on your bike, you had to walk all the way down to the bottom of the garden, like unlock the shed, bring your bike all the way up, make sure you lock the shed, put the key back in the house, and it was a pain in the arse. But they were better when they were in the garage. But toys-wise, it was all our stuff. So we had all that, like water pistols and bikes and swing ball. Remember swing ball? It was like that, the tennis ball on a rope, and you hit it back and forth, and whoever gets to the top or the bottom is the winner. Brilliant. Gavin was very aggressive with that game with me, and I used to cheat quite a lot. It's the only way you can win against an older brother. You have to cheat a little bit. And we had a dartboard in there as well, actually. We were allowed a dartboard in there on the premise that, we didn't throw the darts at each other, or we were sensible with them. And that made me feel really grown up, because like darts was like a man's game to me. It was a game that you played in the pub, and yeah, it was cool. I had my own set of darts. They were crap, don't get me wrong, but I had my own set of darts, and me and Gavin we'd put the board up at the right height, and we had an oche measured on the floor, and you had to open the shed door basically to get the full length. But if it was raining, if you pressed yourself up against the door, you were just about the right distance away. But I wasn't too bad at it, to be fair. But he used to hate it absolutely hate it when I beat him. Being the older brother, I think when your younger brother beats you, it must be kind of like a significant event. I used to love it. Plus, I wasn't probably the best winner sometimes. I used to rub it in his face just because it didn't happen very often. But I do remember one day, I think our parents had nipped out, or they'd gone around a neighbour's house or something. We were throwing the darts at the shed, and he threw a dart at me. I don't know if it was at me, whether I just went to collect my darts and he started throwing his. I feel like it was at me though, because I could be a little shit. And I had to I feel like I dodged out of the way. I probably didn't. It probably was going to miss me anyway. But I remember it hit the corner of the window, and it cracked the glass slightly. And I was petrified. I was like, "Oh my god!" And he was like "Don't tell anyone," because I think he was worried I was going to grass him up. And yeah, it was the worst time. But luckily, Dad didn't notice that for a long time, and I think we got out of it by just saying, "I've no idea." And I think he just put it down to being an old shed, and he knew we kicked the football up against it and stuff like that. So I think he just presumed like a vibration from the football. So we kind of got away with that. But yeah, darts and children probably shouldn't be a mixture, especially like me and my brother didn't always get along. Like I would say probably like 95% of the time we were arguing or hitting each other, and when we were getting along, it would normally turn into something because one of us would annoy the other one, or we wouldn't think the other one was playing by the right rules, or we wouldn't have set the rules out at the start of the game, and then they'd start to be manipulated, and the other person would get really annoyed, or someone would just win, and the other person just wasn't happy about losing. So, violence and name calling ensued regularly. Yeah, but I think we had everything in that shed. We had water cannons. I had this massive, huge one I spent all my pocket money on. And it was ridiculous. I could barely carry it. I think it held like 3 litres of water. It was stupid. But it wasn't a proper super soaker because they were very expensive. But I remember spending all my pocket money on it. And my mum wasn't happy with it at all. She was kind of like, "You don't want to spend your money on a water gun." And I was like, "Yes, I do." 10 years old. What else did we have in there? We had our Spud guns in there. We had a lot of weapons, to be fair. Spud guns. For anyone who doesn't know what a Spud gun is, where were you? What have you been doing with your life? You can still get them. So it's basically like this little moulded plastic gun, and its premise is you just squeeze the handle. It's like in 2 parts, basically, with a spring action. So you squeeze it. Hang on, no, you don't. You let it out, so it's in its normal position. Push it into a potato. There's like a little tiny spherical cutter on the end, and then pull it out. And then when you squeeze the handle together, the force of the air pushing in squeezes the air, and it pops the little piece of potato out, and with a very satisfying pop as well. So a Spud gun. And during the summer, we used to use them all the time because Mum used to give us like any Spuds that were going a bit nasty. Not like to the point that we couldn't hold them. They were mangy, like really manky, but just ones that were sprouting. And she'd probably give us one of them and say, right, once that's done, you're not getting one for the rest of the day, or that's the spud for this week kind of thing. And they were just brilliant fun. And we used to walk around and because unless you were like point blank, they didn't really hurt. Like unless it was in like somewhere soft like your eye, but they were just a cheap, really really good fun thing. And I would definitely buy one for my kid. Just what a cheap thing, an old spud. You're not going to use it anyway. There you go and shoot things in the garden, and it all biodegrades, doesn't it? At the end of the day, like it feeds something or just goes into the soil. So fantastic toy. Peg guns as well. My dad made us peg guns. And I don't know how many people know about these. We had them stored on the wall, like a gun rack, kind of affair. And what a peg gun was, my dad is never great at DIY, but I was really impressed when he made these, to be fair. But he made, it's basically two pieces of wood, like two planks of wood, cut into a gun shape, like a rifle shape. And you hammer a nail into one end, and you glue a wooden peg on the top. And then you take a wooden peg apart, and the metal spring bit in the peg, the loop bit, like the bit that, not the spring basically, the little open bit, you tie a rubber band through that, and the spring bit you lock into the peg that's glued on top of the gun, and you stretch the elastic band out and wrap it over another like knocked in nail to stretch it out, so that gives you elasticism. So it basically becomes like a slingshot made of pegs, basically, on this wooden shaped gun. And we used to spend hours like shooting flies and anything we could. They were super dangerous, to be fair, because you could, if you move the nail, which my brother did on his to make his more powerful, and you got really strong elastic bands. Like, when the trigger was basically opening the peg that's stuck on top. So when you press that peg, then obviously the jaws opened, and this spring, under tension from the elastic band, used to go flying. So the spring thing was kind of like leading the way like a bullet, trailing with elastic bands. And if they hit you, like Gavin shot one at me a few times, accidentally. And yes, they hurt. But yeah, we had a really weird game. I remember one year, for some reason, flies kept landing on the house. This is really bizarre. Like big blue bottles, and it must have been because it was a very warm summer, and I don't know if they were trying to take shelter from the heat or something like that, or eating something from the brickwork, or no idea. It was really bizarre. But these big blue bottles kept landing on the walls of the house, so we were basically sniping them with peg guns, and were pretty bloody successful with it as well. It was kind of grim, actually, because if they were stunned, they'd fall to the floor, and then the dog would eat them. So, yeah, pretty disgusting. And obviously we had the other sort of stuff, like tennis rackets, badminton rackets, nets, and anything really. Like, we had swimming stuff in there from, like, holidays, so, like, snorkels and stuff that, didn't want to put in the loft and stuff, so it was all thrown in there. And it was reasonably tidy. But it was our little space, like probably like a man shed is. Like my little shed is my little space. And as a kid, like you have your bedroom, but it's really like your place to go and sleep, and to have like an extra space away from the house as well was amazing. And we had blankets down there as well. So if we went down there and we were cold, we could wrap ourselves up. We could sit in there, and when my friends used to come around, we had little chairs and stuff in there. Some old furniture that my dad had found somewhere, and old stuff when we were kids, like miniature, like folding chairs and stuff, like children-sized chairs. And we used to go and sit there and just talk and take drinks and snacks and stuff down there. And it's just a massive adventure. You just felt like you were having like the best adventure of your life. And that's pretty much the same now with sheds, apart from it's a bit more practical. And unfortunately, normally if you're going in there, it's because you've got work to do, or you've got to bloody sort the thing out. But when you're a kid and you open that like shed of dreams, so to speak, it was great. I used to sit in there for hours. Like I sometimes take my colours down there and colour in, and sit with the dog in there. Yeah, absolutely absolutely brilliant time in my life, and it was just so nice that that was a thing, because a lot of my mates, they didn't really have anything like that. So I was quite lucky in the way. I mean, it all came about just because we weren't going to get it. It literally came about just because my dad was surprised it didn't fall apart, and it was rickety as hell. Like, when he was building it, I think he was close to saying, like, let's just get rid of this because it's crap. But I think because me and Gavin were so excited about it, it stayed. And it eventually became a place just to store stuff. Like, it was kind of a shame. It became a bit of a monument of childhood, really, because the older you get, like, I bought a new bike, and the old bike stayed down there, and eventually, we'd every so often go in there and get something, but it became just a bit of a storage shed of childhood things that we didn't use anymore. And then, because I started keeping my bike in the garage again, because I'd bought a new bike, I'd been given a new bike, and my parents didn't want it down in that shed because it wasn't as secure, and again, it wasn't close to the house, so they wanted it to be somewhere that they could properly lock up and have security lights on and things like that. But yeah, it became a bit of a bit of a monument to childhood, and just full of cobwebs and spiders and bugs, and it did start to fall down eventually. And then one day my dad was like, I want to put something where that is. Let's tear it down, basically. So we got rid of all the stuff. There wasn't much stuff left in it by the end, though, because we were slowly, like, taking bikes out of it. But there was some hilarious finds we did clear out. Like, we found a Spud guns, which I think I still got somewhere. I didn't want to throw it away, so I took it, put it in my room, which my dad was really annoyed about. He was like, why do you need that? And I was like, because it's mine. I'd scrawled my name into it with, like, a protractor or something, so we could differentiate between which was mine and Gavin's, because we were always losing one of them, and then the other person would say that the other one was theirs, so I scrawled my name in mine. And I'm pretty sure I've still got it somewhere. Even though they are, like, well, they're actually quite expensive to buy now, Spud guns. Like everything. Like, back in the day, you could probably buy them for £1. I saw one the other week and it was like £7. But you know what? It's a cracking little toy. They don't break neither. If you look after them, they're just cheap toys. We had rifles as well, though, in there. We had this rifle that took caps, like, I don't know if you've ever seen, like, the string caps you can get. They're like on paper. It's like a roll of caps, and it was like a proper old cowboy rifle. And I don't know where that went. I feel like it's probably been because it had been left in that shed and it was probably corroded to hell. But I used to love that. I used to play cowboys and Indians with that all the time, and because our garden was so big, it was just there were so many places to hide. It was brilliant, and I used to do army, because I obviously watched you in the army. I used to crawl around the garden and pretend I was, like, in command of some crack army unit. Normally the A-team. I used to play A-team quite a lot. And I'd do all the characters' voices. I'd pretty much be all the characters. I played alone quite a lot as a child. One, because I've mentioned before, because I kind of liked it. Because I could be in charge of how it was going to go. But also, because Gavin was a bit older, he never really wanted to play the games I was playing. So if it was like darts or something like that, he'd be up for it. Like tennis, he loved tennis, and that's probably one of the things that we used to play most that we didn't argue about. I think the problem is the older he got, then he wanted to hit the ball quicker, and he had to hit it slow for me because I was young and not as good. But yeah, we had this like rifle, this cowboy rifle, and it took the cap roll, so you had to open the side if you like slid the side down. You put the roll of caps in and you fed it through. So every time you cocked it, it would roll the caps round, but it'd bang every time. It was friggin' brilliant, and I loved it. And it's making me want to buy one. It's making me want to Google search or check Amazon and see if they still do them, because it was like the most epic thing ever. I probably shouldn't though, because I recently bought two Nerf M41A pulse rifles. One to keep as is and one to like do up as a replica from the film, so I feel like I don't really need to spend any more money on toy guns right now. But it's them things when you're a kid though, like the imagination side of things. Like, you don't need much. Like, I didn't have iPads and stuff like that, and I'm glad for that. I really am glad. And my mum and dad would encourage us to go outside and play. I've never been a super active guy, to be honest. Like, because even they said go out and play. Like, I would play Cowboys and Indians for a bit and stuff like that, but I would sit and watch creatures in the garden. Like, I was a big creature freak. Um, sounds bizarre, but I loved nature, and this is how I would spend most of my time as a kid playing, is going to my shed and getting my little toolkit of bug collecting stuff, my magnifying glass, and all my little petri dishes to collect bugs and to show and scare my mother. And we had a pond as well. And I used to just sit for hours staring in the pond and just looking at all the bugs. And I had reference guides. I've still got one of the little books I had, and it's like utter like childhood memories when I look at that book. And it's basically just all creatures from the British Isles, pretty much. So it's like a list of like different types of animals, the most common things you would see, really, like birds, insects, pond life, fish, and it had maps in about heat maps of where things live, populations, how to contact like preservation societies if you find something that's rare. It was a cracking little book, and I remember getting it for. I was young when I got it because I've always been into like nature and stuff, so I was probably really young when I actually got that. Maybe 7 again. I don't know. 7 always is the number that comes to mind. But I used to carry it with me everywhere. I go on holiday and I would have it with me, and my mum and dad used to say, "Oh, what's that bird over there, Steve?" And I'd be like, "Oh, it's such and such. I'll just check it." And then I'd be like, "Oh, it grows up to this size and it nests here," and absolutely loved it. I was a bit of a know-it-all, to be fair, and stuff like that when I was a kid. I loved ponds that much that I could tell you like the life cycles of dragonflies and what different nymphs look like and the larvae and all these different creatures that lived in ponds and where they lived and how big they were and like everything. And but yeah, I would just sit. I'd go down the shed and grab my little adventure pack. I had a little backpack that I kept it all in, and my mum used to let me go like obviously a little way down the street. And there was a few fields nearby, so I used to go and collect bugs in the fields and bring them home, and yeah, just great times, And that shed provided all that because I didn't have to keep it in my room because my room was quite small in my house. And I don't know if I've said this before because I used to actually have in my old house the medium-sized room, and Gavin had the small room. I don't know how that came about because you think it'd be the other way around, but I think he chose that room when we moved in, and I had big wardrobes in my room which had some of his clothes in, so I had to sacrifice some of my room for his kind of clothes. But I always wanted everything he had, so I begged and begged and begged and begged and begged my mum and dad to put me, the next time they decorated, could we swap rooms? And Gavin was obviously okay with this because he would get the big room then. And I was happy as Larry that I was in this small room. And it only occurred to me, I think, when I got older that I was like, I'd love some more space. But for years, I was quite happy being in like the tiniest room in the house because it felt like a nest to me. But I did have a lot of stuff in the room. It was literally like you walk in, the bed was in front of you. At the end of the bed was a desk with hardly any room to put your legs underneath it because it literally touched the bed. It was literally like bed, desk, wall, and to the left of that was a wardrobe, and there was just enough room literally to open the doors, but you couldn't walk around the doors if they were open, so you had to be stood in front of them and squeeze them open to get into the little wardrobe I had. And then next to that was like 2 boxes of like toys and different things. And that was my room, literally completely full. Like you walk in, they got the door opening and like a little line to walk towards the wardrobe, and that was the floor space was very much at a premium. So again, when the old shed came along, I was able to put like a load of stuff in the shed, which pleased me greatly. And I'm reliving it in this house actually. When I got my shed, I was like, oh god, I can empty some of the stuff out the garage and empty some stuff out of my room. Brilliant stuff. But yeah, just playing in general in my old house was brilliant. The size of the garden and that shed was everything. It was, as you say, it was a storage place, but it was a place to chill. It was a space to eat. It was like a clubhouse. It was a place to kiss girls when I was a kid. Like I had a girlfriend and we went and had a little kiss in there. It felt really naughty. And I don't know if that would surprise my mum and dad, actually. I don't know if my mum and dad thought things like that were going on in there, but I don't know. I'm pretty sure Gavin probably had a couple of girls in there. And it was a saloon when I was playing Cowboys and Indians. It was the barracks when I was playing Army, or it was the place to blow up when I was playing Army. A lot of good things came out of that shed. It's strange, isn't it, how if we didn't have it, we'd have had the stuff elsewhere, and we'd have probably played the same similar games. But that small little space, which seems probably reasonably insignificant, did a lot for our play and our minds. It kept me outside more, because I think if we hadn't have had it, I genuinely think that I would have probably been inside a bit more. Because my dad wouldn't let us play in the garage, and he wouldn't let us go in his personal shed. It was a privilege if he said go and grab something out of that shed, or go into the garage for something that wasn't dog food. Yeah, it's I think it's bizarre, isn't it? It just came to me this morning when I was thinking about recording a podcast on something completely different, to be honest, and I was thinking about going in the shed for something, and then I just suddenly had a flashback of like our old shed and how amazing it was, and I just thought, I'll talk about that. Hopefully you found it reasonably interesting. It just gives you that space, doesn't it? It's like anything. We all need our own space. We all need our own headspace. And I think, especially discovering the stuff I'm discovering about myself mentally recently, I think that was a big thing. And maybe that's why my memories from that era are so clear, is because that is the time where I moved rooms into the small room. It's the time when we got that shed, and I was doing things that I wanted to do and felt comfortable with, and it gave me a space away from things. I was never one of them kids, my mum and dad might say differently, but I feel like I was never one of them kids that if I was quiet, I was up to no good. I feel like if you could hear me, I was probably up to no good. Whereas if I was quiet, I was normally content doing something super focused. Which probably would be just as disturbing as an adult than if someone was pissing around. But yeah, I would get very super focused on, like, just sitting staring at bugs in the garden. I just sit in the soil, staring at ants, watching what they did. I was obsessed as a kid that I was going to be a biologist and go and study ants in the jungle. That's what I wanted to do in my life. It's strange to see how things pan out. Yeah. What did you do as a kid? Like, what did you guys do? Did you have your own little space? Did you have playrooms? Some people have playrooms, don't they? Like, I know a couple of my friends have playrooms for their children. So they've got like a separate dining room. It's not a dining room. They've turned it into just a playroom or a second sitting room where doubles as a playroom. And we never had that because our house didn't really have a dining room. It had like just a larger sitting room that we had a dining room table in. But yeah, what did you do? Where did you store your toys? Did you have a clubhouse? Did you make a clubhouse? Did you have one at your friend's house that you went to? I'm very interested to see how this affects people and what other people did. Yeah, I think our shed kind of changed our childhoods. That sounds super dramatic and ridiculous, but I genuinely think it did. So yeah. How bizarre! What a bizarre topic, and Google peg guns. I might Google it myself to see if there's anything online about them. I don't even know where we found out about peg guns. Google Spud guns. I might go look for a cowboy gun. Why is everything gun related? I don't know. My dad was in the army, so maybe that's what it is. And swing ball. That was an ace game. I wonder if I could get a swing ball. I think Sarah would play swing ball with me. I feel like she would. I need to get fit, so it's something I could play that on my own. You could play swing ball alone, couldn't you? Curious. Anyway, on that bombshell, I'll leave you all to it. Thank you very much for listening. Please comment. I need feedback. Feedback's really good. It's a very lonely thing doing a podcast. You don't know what people are thinking, so if you can drop me a like or a comment, please do. And go to stevenspeak.com if you want any information or read the blog or contact me if you want to be a guest. So thanks very much. Take care of yourselves, and I'll speak to you all soon. You've been listening to Steven Speak the podcast. Thanks for listening to my unscripted prattle on everything and nothing. Visit stevenspeak.com for updates, information, and my blog. You can follow more updates on social media at StephenSpeakPC. Thanks very much, and I'll speak to you soon.